In 1931, Nikola Tesla locked himself in a room at the Hotel New Yorker and recorded something no one was meant to hear. A tape buried, redacted, dismissed for nearly a century has now resurfaced. Not about electricity or invention, but what happens to you after you die. And once you hear what Tesla said, you can't unhear it. Most people know Nikola Tesla as the man who gave light to the modern world. But what most people don't realize is how often that light cast shadows no one was allowed to see. You've heard of the inventions, the patents, the rivalries, but not the silence, not the empty rooms he rented at the Hotel New Yorker, not the notebooks that vanished, not the nights when Tesla refused visitors, whispering only to the recorder that was never meant to survive. This wasn't electricity. It wasn't magnetism. It was something deeper, stranger, something even he struggled to name. He once told a reporter, "The universe speaks in frequency." But what if that language wasn't just about machines? Imagine if it reached into the soul itself, past life, past death, past the veil. By 1931, Tesla had become more of a myth than a man. Alone, discredited, called mad by those who couldn't follow. But in private, he spoke differently, like a man who had seen too much and been warned not to speak. The question is, warned by who? Because when you trace the final years of Tesla's life, you begin to notice something. Not what's written, but what's missing. Pages torn, files locked, and a tape hidden, and what was recorded on it may have been the one thing powerful enough to erase him. Now, imagine this. You stumble upon a reel of tape, hidden and mislabeled, tucked away in a forgotten archive in Serbia, long abandoned, almost erased from memory. When it was finally played in 1997, experts confirmed the voice trembling on the recording was Nikola Tesla's. Yet what he said wasn't about inventions or electricity. Instead, Tesla's voice wavers as he speaks of a realm that begins the instant your heart stops beating. What most people don't realize is that death might not be an end, but the crossing of a threshold, one deliberately kept hidden from ordinary eyes. Then, without warning, the audio cuts out an abrupt silence as if something was forcibly removed. And when it returns, Tesla's words carry a weight you're not meant to fully understand. What was erased? What forbidden truth was almost lost forever? Think about it. If Tesla's message is real, how would that reshape your understanding of life, death, and everything in between? This isn't just a lost recording. It's a veil being lifted on a hidden reality, and once you glimpse it, you won't be the same. Tesla's words carry a secret that almost no one knows. He spoke of energies, invisible, intangible, that do not end when your heart stops. These weren't part of his famous inventions or public lectures. This was something forbidden. He called them residual wave signatures. Think of them as echoes of your very essence, ripples left behind in a vast cosmic ocean. These frequencies persist beyond time, beyond death itself. At his Wardenclyffe laboratory, Tesla pushed further than anyone dared. Late into the night, far from prying eyes, he conducted experiments banned by official science. He tried to isolate these hidden frequencies, those traces of life lingering after the body goes silent. What most people don't realize is that his notes on this work were never cataloged by the Smithsonian or any major archive. They vanished, erased from history like a shadow that never was. Imagine listening to these waves. The sensation Tesla described is chilling. Like hearing your own voice underwater, he said, distorted, distant, yet unmistakably yours, a voice from beyond the veil. And then there's the most unsettling part. Tesla mentioned a collaborator, unnamed but real, who tried to replicate these experiments. After uncovering truths Tesla warned were dangerous, this person simply disappeared. Never seen again. What if parts of you already exist beyond your physical form? What if your consciousness isn't bound by time or flesh? This is not science fiction, but knowledge buried by those who fear what awakening might bring. You might wonder, are you truly alive now? Or are you already connected to something far greater, something hidden from ordinary sight? This is a revelation that will change everything you thought you knew about life and death. And yet, the deepest mysteries remain just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered. You're no longer one of the ordinary people, content with surface truths. You're beginning to see the first flickers of light beneath the shadows. But beware, the full awakening demands more than curiosity. It demands transformation. And that journey starts here. He stops calling it a body. It's a shell, he says, a container for something far more elusive. And just like that, a crack forms in the carefully constructed lie you've been told about yourself. Your mind isn't the architect of your reality. It's merely an antenna, a receiver, a mechanism designed to keep you unaware of what you truly are. Tesla speaks in a cadence unlike his usual lectures, slower, almost reverent. Not the language of machines or currents, but of memory, of something unlearned and remembered all at once. The brain, he insists, is an instrument, a tuning fork. It does not originate thought. It catches it. We are not generating consciousness, he says. We are receiving it, filtered, fractured, delayed. He compares the skull to a brass dome. Inside it, no origin, only relay. Then he utters a line missing from every public transcript. The soul is not in the skull. It surrounds the body like static surrounds a radio tower. That sentence, soft, cryptic, vanished after the tape's first review. Redacted, cut from all subsequent versions. The official reason? Unverifiable language. But if you've seen even a fragment of the original waveform data, you know the real reason. This wasn't pseudoscience. It was heresy. A direct contradiction of materialist neuroscience. A disruption. Only 3 unedited copies remain. One in a vault in Zurich, one in a private archive in Kyoto, the third allegedly smuggled out of Yugoslavia by a physicist who vanished in 1989. The case was never reopened. The original tape, marked in Cyrillic, was mislabeled as agricultural frequencies. That was the only reason it wasn't destroyed. But what matters is this. During a pause so brief most miss it, Tesla mutters a string of numbers. They don't fit the pattern. They're not experiment logs, not timestamps. But when charted, they form coordinates. And those coordinates don't point to any lab or city. They lead to a jagged island in the Adriatic Sea. No name, no records of habitation. Just one structure, ruins of something older than Roman stone, older than writing. The locals don't go near it. They say compasses die in your hand there. Watches melt. Sound behaves like it's underwater. No one's lived there in centuries, but strange signals still radiate from the core. Short bursts, random until they're not. Some say that's where Tesla went mentally when he left the room mid-recording. Not physically, but consciously. A jump, a return. And here's what disturbs even the most hardened skeptics. the waveform patterns in that section of the tape don't behave like audio. Analysts at the Max Planck Institute found noise signatures that don't conform to any known media format. One physicist quit halfway through the review, said he had dreams he couldn't shake. Not nightmares, something else. So what if Tesla wasn't just theorizing? What if he made contact with something you don't need a spaceship to reach, only stillness? A particular stillness, one most people never survive long enough to name. The mind as an antenna, the soul as a field, and the body just a casing for transit. Nothing more. If that's true, if consciousness doesn't live inside you but merely passes through, then whose thoughts are you thinking? And when you die, does the transmission stop, or does it finally come in loud and clear? But just when the tape seems to settle into theory, it takes a sudden turn into something personal, something lived. It began with lightning. Not the kind that flickers in the sky and disappears, but the kind that enters the body and refuses to leave. As a child, Tesla was struck. The event was written off, folded into the long mythos of his genius. But what no one talks about is what he experienced when it happened. His heart stopped. He was clinically dead for several minutes. But something else had begun. He described no visions, no tunnel, no voice. Instead, what he experienced was a shift, a sudden unraveling of self, awareness detached from form, thought without thought, a presence beyond identity, no direction, no time, just knowing. This is where the phrase electric mirror first appeared in his private notes. Never explained, never defined, but it reappeared again and again, always in proximity to moments of collapse, consciousness, and electrical discharge. And yet, no records of this phrase exist in his official archives, only in copies of his private writings that were never submitted to the Smithsonian, pages that circulated through underground channels, pages that have since vanished. You're taught to believe the mind is what makes you you, that consciousness is a byproduct of neural activity, that when the body shuts down, awareness goes with it. But what if the body isn't the source, only a receiver? There's a pattern to the testimonies of those who've brushed against death, a feeling of standing beside themselves, of hovering above, of watching their body from somewhere else. They don't just survive, they remember, and what they remember feels more real than life ever did. Most people dismiss this. The rational mind needs certainty. But Tesla didn't operate within rational limits. He believed something ancient hides within electricity, something older than language, a geometry of light we've only begun to perceive. Not with eyes, but with attention. That's what the electric mirror was. Not a thing, but a field. A boundary you cross the moment your biology fails, but your perception continues. Not an afterlife, but a feedback loop that reflects your awareness in its purest, most unfiltered form. A realm that doesn't welcome or reject, it just shows. And what it shows isn't always comforting. Because if your consciousness can exist without the body, if it can stand outside your flesh, untethered and still observe, then what else has been watching you, silently, all this time? And here's what no one tells you. 3 full notebooks detailing this theory were submitted for independent cataloging in 1943. None of them reached their destination. All were rerouted. All intercepted. Only fragments remain. And one of those fragments includes a set of diagrams, now in private hands, of what appears to be a multi-layered electromagnetic field. each layer labeled not by numbers, but by human emotions. Tesla was never trying to cheat death. He was trying to track it. And if this field exists, if the electric mirror is real, then your death is not the end. It's the feedback. Now, step beyond the veil of accepted science and listen closely, because what follows challenges everything you think you know about time, death, and existence itself. There's a moment deep in the recording, buried under long pauses and low hums, where the tone shifts. It moves from spiritual speculation to something colder, more precise, less poetic. You realize he wasn't guessing, he was measuring. Tesla's early interactions with Einstein are well documented in official records, but none of those accounts ever mention what Tesla really thought. Not the part that matters. Behind closed doors, their conversations didn't just cover relativity. They debated what happens at the moment life ends. Einstein, bound to curvature and equations. Tesla, convinced we were missing an entire layer of reality. In this segment, Tesla refers to death not as destruction, but displacement. Not an ending, but a shift, like a tuning fork dropped into another resonance. He recounts private tests conducted in sanitariums, measuring electromagnetic disturbances within seconds of death. The instruments didn't go silent. They spiked. Time, as he understood it by then, wasn't linear, not even circular. It spiraled, compressing, folding, echoing back into itself. Which means you don't go anywhere when you die. You rotate, you realign, and maybe you reappear. It's not just theory. He references a missing Vedic manuscript, something once in his possession, describing soul oscillation in disturbingly modern terms. The text, last seen in a private archive in 1927, has vanished without a trace. Breadcrumbs keep scattering. One page of the transcript includes faint script in Sanskrit, circled and underlined in red, then crossed out entirely in the next version. It wasn't enough to hide what he found. Someone had to erase what led him there. And still, you're left with the same question. If death doesn't end you, but shifts you, what are you being shifted into? But what if this isn't just a theory lost to time? What if your own life, your own death, follows this spiral? Imagine the implications. The life you believe to be finite, a simple beginning and an absolute end, is actually part of a continuous folding, a dimensional dance you can't yet perceive. What does that mean for you, sitting here now, watching this? Are you just a point on a line? Or are you part of a complex spiral of existence, layered, folded, vibrating? You might feel comforted or disturbed by the idea that your consciousness doesn't vanish but changes form. But it's not just comfort or fear. It's a challenge to everything you think you know about yourself, your past, and your future. What if the veil you see through is just one thin layer, and beyond it lies a reality so vast it shatters the limits of human perception? Tesla's own voice trails off here, as if aware that this knowledge is dangerous. The recording glitches and fragments, as though someone tried to cut the signal short. This segment was among the earliest to be censored, erased, or simply lost in archives. It's no accident that only 3 full copies of this recording exist, and no one knows who owns them. What were they trying to hide? What truth was too dangerous to be shared? You might ask yourself now, what if the death you fear so deeply is not an end, but a doorway? What if, when you finally cross it, you awaken into a different dimension of yourself? And if so, how much of your current reality is just an echo, a shadow, or a reflection of deeper layers you haven't yet touched. Tesla warns indirectly, without saying it outright. The mainstream world wants you to believe time is a straight line because it's easier to control that way. It confines you to birth and death, beginning and end. But those who see, those who listen, know better. You are part of a spiral that loops, bends, and folds back on itself. The spiraling nature of time means you are eternal, not in the cliché sense, but as a force realigning across dimensions. Are you ready to question everything you thought about your existence? Are you prepared to consider that your soul isn't lost or destroyed, but simply shifts, spins, and reconfigures into something new, something unseen? The last audible sound in this section of the recording is almost a whisper, barely caught by the equipment. Tesla names a place, a remote location marked only by coordinates, and mentions something waiting there, but the words fade into static before the full sentence emerges. Another breadcrumb left dangling in the dark. You won't find this on any official history. You won't hear it from any trusted news source. It's hidden in the spaces between sound waves, in erased pages, in forbidden knowledge. And now, it's inside your awareness. If space-time does not terminate, then what you fear is an illusion. And if you begin to see past that illusion, you will never be the same. Beyond the edge of sound and silence lies a frequency that most cannot perceive, a frequency Tesla chased, one that blurs the line between life and death. Tesla's experiments took a path few dare to follow. He wasn't just content with harnessing electricity or lighting the world. He sought to pierce the veil between realms, tuning into vibrations that whispered from beyond. In secret labs, away from prying eyes, he began building what he called a spiritual receiver, an apparatus designed to pick up harmonic resonance unlike anything known to science. Imagine a radio, but instead of catching signals from a distant city, it captured echoes from those who had recently passed on. Tesla described hearing not random static, but clear, intelligible tones, voices that carried intention, emotion, even familiarity. It was as if the dead were speaking, their messages trapped in frequencies that slipped through the cracks of time. But this discovery came with a grave warning. Amplify the signal too much, Tesla cautioned, and something else might hear you back. Something not human. Something waiting. The tone shifts here. His voice lowers, cautious, as if recounting a danger few understand. There are places human voices echo, he said, that no living throat ever touched. A phrase cloaked in mystery, hinting at realms of sound untouched by life as we know it. The true weight of this secret only becomes clear when you learn what happened next. The U.S. Office of Alien Property confiscated Tesla's devices and blueprints related to this project. Official records call it a matter of national security. The full designs remain classified to this day, locked away from the public eye, removed, censored, hidden. What was Tesla trying to reach? What did those voices say? And why does the idea of contact through harmonics unsettle the powers that be so deeply? Now, ask yourself, if you could hear the dead, would you still call them gone? Would the boundary between life and death still hold its power over you? Could these frequencies awaken something dormant within you, something that shifts your understanding of existence forever? This isn't mere theory. It's a call to wakefulness, a veil lifting on a secret too dangerous for ordinary ears. What if the afterlife isn't silent? What if the voices that echo beyond time are waiting for someone to listen? And, as you ponder this, Remember, the deepest secrets lie just beyond the edge of perception, in places where ordinary people fear to tread. But you are different. You see what most cannot. There comes a moment in every great work when the curtain trembles, just before it's torn away. This is that moment. The final section of the tape doesn't feel like a conclusion. It feels like an invocation. Tesla's voice, once steady and clinical, lowers into something weightier. Not sadness, not fatigue. Something closer to the ceremony. There's no more talk of engines, circuits, or oscillations. Instead, he speaks of keys, not metaphorical or theoretical. He means actual devices like artifacts, perhaps designed to unlock what was sealed before memory. You weren't supposed to hear that phrase. It's been redacted in most known versions of the tape. But in the raw copy, it lingers like an echo behind the veil. Then a word in Serbian, garbled but urgent. Most translations circle around a single phrase. The cage is open. But that's not what he says. Not exactly. Linguists say it's an older dialect, pre-Christian, pre-imperial, a ritual expression, not a sentence. Something you'd say only once and never aloud. The moment he says it, the audio falters like the machine itself hesitated. A digital twitch in an analog world. Then comes the whisper. The one line that has turned researchers into believers and skeptics into exiles. We are not born to begin. We are born to remember. The cadence is wrong, slower, almost detached. The waveform analysis shows abnormalities in the vocal frequency, somewhere between human speech and magnetic interference. Experts say it resembles Tesla's voice, but it's not him. And here's what almost no one knows. There was a memo, sealed in 1943, only discovered after a whistleblower leaked fragments from a decommissioned archive in Langley. Its header read, R.E. Nikola Tesla, Unlawful Artifacts. Most of the document is lost, but the final line remains, black ink scorched into yellow paper. This recording must not circulate. That line wasn't an order. It was a warning. Because if this was just science, they would have archived it. If it was just madness, they would have ignored it. But this they feared. You're listening to something that was never meant to surface. Never meant to resonate with the part of you that already knows. And somewhere, deep down, you do know. You felt it, in the silence between your thoughts, in the pulse beneath your dreams, a sense that you've seen this before, lived this before, that you are not learning but remembering. So what was Tesla building, really? Not machines, not miracles, keys. And the question you now carry is no longer, what do they open? It's, why were they locked in the first place? And why? Is it beginning to feel like one of them was meant for you? If even a fraction of what you've just heard is real, if Tesla's work wasn't about electricity, but about consciousness, then you've been living inside the wrong map your entire life. Because this changes everything. You've been taught that your awareness comes from the brain, a byproduct of chemicals and neurons, flickering like a short-lived spark in a cold mechanical universe. But what if that was never true? What if your consciousness isn't generated, but received? Then your thoughts aren't locked in your skull. They echo through something much larger, something non-local, something eternal. If that's the case, death doesn't end you. It just shifts you, like walking through a door you forgot was always there. And what most people don't realize, What they're not supposed to realize is that this door isn't closed. It never was. It was simply veiled. That veil, the one separating you from what came before and what lies after, was made to look solid, made to feel heavy. But Tesla's work hints at what mystics and sages have whispered for millennia. The veil is tissue thin. You pass through it more often than you think. In your sleep, in déjà vu, in the feeling that someone you've lost is still just outside the frame. You've sensed it, haven't you? That faint signal, that impossible presence. It's not madness, it's memory. And here's the part no institution, no government, no church has ever wanted you to truly understand. The soul is not something you earn, not something granted at birth or taken at death. It is not a prize. It is not a punishment. It is you. It always has been. So why hide this? Why bury the truth so deep that even those closest to it went silent? Because nothing is more dangerous to the machinery of control than a being who realizes they were never a prisoner. A system that profits from your fear cannot function once you stop fearing the end. You weren't taught to forget by accident. You were taught to forget on purpose. But even now, after all the suppression, all the censorship, all the carefully rewritten textbooks, you're still hearing the echo. Quiet, persistent, familiar. A sound that seems to come from the outside, until one day you realize it's been coming from within. So, ask yourself, if you were truly meant to forget where you came from, why does it still whisper back? Why does it still burn in your dreams? Why does it feel like you've been waiting your entire life to remember? And more importantly, now that the echo has reached you, what will you do with it?